And we are going to forego the approval of the minutes because we just received them. So we're going to wait until our next meeting. And I am going to jump ahead to the public hearing for the tabled project on the Cedar Lee Theater. We received an updated proposal, and instead of going through the whole thing, it seems like the pertinent part is that you've established that it's a more recent wall.
Yeah. We'll talk.
Thank you.
We'll talk. There was a little miscommunication on our side, so.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, ready?
Sure.
Awesome. Sounds good. So I won't go over all the details as you
Right.
mentioned. I think we all remember a lot of it, but really appreciate you all making the time for us again. So today we have with us Erin Guido, Director of Arts and Strategy at Land, and she's going to talk a little bit more about like the paint particulars, things in that area. And then many of you all know Kara O'Donnell, who is a planner and also on the Heights Arts Board, and also public art planning. Just as a reminder, some of the goals of this is to enhance the building facade within the district as it transforms into this arts district. Location again. Here, artist Arlen Graff, references of his work, our process, and then here's the artwork as a reminder. So I won't go through that. But let's talk about painting on the brick. We're really good here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's me, right?
Oh, that's your slide. Sorry, I looked at Aaron's.
No, it's okay.
So I did go out and look at the building, and I did actually listen to your whole meeting from the last time, so I was caught up on what was happening. And so what I wanted to just, and there was some back and forth and some, but there was the original Cedar Lee Theater that was the original theater, which is the two-story component. There was another building built next to it, which was also from the 1920s. That was a bunch of little commercial storefronts that was right next to it. So in the 1970s or 80s, the Lee facade of that building was mucked about with, and I think we have some other pictures of that too. And it was reclad with brick, and I actually went out and took a look at that just to confirm that.
Because it was
Right, yeah.
Right.
So then, so it looked really pretty back in the 20s, and then they did this to it, and now then they did that in the 70s or the 80s of what it looks like on the Lee facade.
Mhm.
And so those two buildings, until those screening rooms were added, which I think was probably the 70s or the 80s, were disconnected, not the same building, not associated with each other. And so the theater maintains a lot of its integrity. Especially, you can see some of the improvements. I remember when the Landmark Commission approved the changes to the storefronts on that building, that the integrity of and the detailing on the facade of the Cedar Lee Theater, which has some interesting brickwork and some interesting coursing on it, and the storefront windows, is very disassociated architecturally with the one-story building that wasn't originally part of the building. And so the architecture of that's just clad. You can kind of see how the bricks were hooked onto the front of the facade if you go underneath and stick your hand there, which I did. And so I guess our argument is that and I understand it, and I saw in the meeting where you said it's the whole complex that is landmark. I didn't necessarily remember that part. But our argument, I guess, is that the original building is doesn't have, or the one-story building doesn't really have the architectural integrity that the original theater building does itself.
And it was not part of the original.
And it was not part of the original building. And so, and also isn't architecturally significant. It doesn't really contribute to the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And it's also really strange that a building like that was built on a corridor in the 1920s and there's no windows on that facade. It's unlike any other corridor in Cleveland Heights. If you think about any cross corridor of a major intersection, any corridor building usually has a facade or windows on both sides, or at least in the corner. And so it's sort of an odd duck, I guess, in that district.
So it never had windows facing the
Not that I could tell.
I would think when it was a restaurant, it had windows.
I went and looked at that brick on the Cedar side. It does look original. It does look 1920s, but it doesn't look like there were ever windows there. You know, I was hoping that it was only brick, but it doesn't look as though, it just looks like it was a pretty utilitarian. It almost looks like a building that they thought it was getting up against an alley or something. Like it doesn't have there's no detail into it whatsoever. And I mean,
It is funny that it's
That's
so
why I
plain.
think it's.
what's that?
It's funny that it's so plain.
Yeah.
And
because-
that's why we questioned
facing.
if it was new.
I would, I would be glad to ask either Jonathan Foreman or the guy who had the restaurant there. I would think it would have windows when he had a restaurant.
Because I remember all of that getting replat in the early 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it looked really, I mean, with the T111 on that, you know, like the T111 on that, like, somebody kept just trying to make it look nice, but like, I don't think, and I did go out and look at it, it does look like it's old brick. And I couldn't tell, you know, at the corner, you can tell where they put that new clad brick with the, like, the frames. You can tell the corner that where that happened, but it doesn't seem like on the back corner that there's a change to the brick. So and by the way, I have a degree in architecture and historic preservation planning. In my opinion, I think it is newer, older brick, but I don't understand, unless it was in some time after the fact, they did a really great job.
I was gonna say, like, they had a great mix.
Yeah, they could have, right? I don't know the answer to that.
But it sounds like the one-story structure, the history of it is that it was not originally part of the theater complex and was renovated. Many of us remember that whenever that was, the 80s.
80s.
And into that addition to the theater complex. So to me, that makes a difference. I don't know about the rest of you.
No, I agree.
With thinking about the painting of brick.
Yeah, and I think it's just in a question of the materials for the paint to make sure that, you know, it's appropriate for masonry.
Yeah,
And
I have a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I think this is kind of what, I think actually,
So if you go back to that, actually, go back to that last one.
Like, look
See,
at the brick.
there's like the change, you see that, like, I think
Yes.
it's bad tuck pointing, or something happened there where they rebuilt that, and you can see on the back, there's like, the whole back of that thing is like windows that are blocked up,
Yeah.
like it really,
Yeah.
not terribly, subtly. So, yeah, there has been some either tuck pointing or rebuilding of the wall, in that last.
Yeah, where they have windows on the back, not the front. I mean,
It's so
the side.
strange.
Yeah. Building.
It's very ugly, it looks so much nicer with a mirror look.
We
What's my age?
were just worried about.
That's.
Lenny Horowitz.
Yeah, no, and we, you know, we totally get the idea of like making sure the things that we put up last and taking care of the buildings, like totally appreciate
Yeah.
you guys are being thoughtful about this, absolutely. Knowing that it was more porous brick and just raw brick, we went in a deep dive on like, okay, well, like, what will paint do to this and those kinds of things. And the paint that we're suggesting to use is called Loxone by Sherwin-Williams. And what we've learned about that is it's specially made for raw brick, like masonry. It's vapor porous so that it can breathe. So I think like what we traditionally think of that like locking in and then ruining the brick, the technology in the last couple of years has really improved. The Loxone came out in 2010, but even over the last couple of years, they keep on making improvements to it. So, you know, in our experience, it's fantastic. It is actually made specifically for brick.
What's the
It's-
product?
It's called Loxone by Sherwin-Williams. Yeah, so, you know, so there are products now, I think it's a little different than maybe if we were talking about this 10 years ago, that actually are made specifically for this type of surface with the porous, the ability for the vapors and being porous so it's not locking in and for longevity of the brick. So that's really important to us. We're having a professional primer prime the paint, so it's going to be primed correctly. And then Arlen, who's painted on brick numerous times, actually we were like asking him if he would use this, and he's like, that's what I use already. So he's very familiar with that kind of paint, and that's already what he's used before. And so just wanted to mention that's what the product we're using, and we're really mindful of the longevity and our experience with painting raw brick in other circumstances too.
So,
I mean, that's a product I recommend for masonry paint.
So great.
so long term, 10, 20 years, when this needs to be rejuvenated or something, how does that, will the building owner take on that? Is that coming back to Heights Arts? How is that maintenance gonna continue?
So there is a agreement with the building owner to maintain it for 5 years. I think it's 5 years. Each agreement was a little different and everyone had like different stipulations, but so for 5 years, it's on the building owner. After that, it would actually, Carolyn from the SID is really building a fund for to maintain public art in the arts district. And so she couldn't commit to it at the time when we were doing the agreement with the building owners. So she said basically if we could get the 5 years from the building owners, then as she's building this fund, she was comfortable taking on the building maintenance for the longer term.
So then is that something that can be included in whatever that contract looks like, or however that maintenance looks like, that they will continue to use Loxone or some other appropriate paint material?
Yeah,
Versus
sure.
them going up to Home Depot and getting.
Yeah,
paint.
yeah.
I mean, that's my worry.
Yeah,
is that,
yeah.
you know,
No, it's a great point.
15 years from now or 20 years when nobody remembers, that they go out and just slap up regular paint.
Yeah.
It defeats it.
We are asking each artist, but we're aware of it, is to create like a for the colors as well, so have like all the paint colors and products that you use. So I think it's a great idea to include that in the contract, but we definitely are going to have on file, like, this is the exact paint and the exact color that was used to.
And there's a federal law, which I'm blocking on the name of, that I couldn't just go out, was it?
Vera,
yeah.
right.
It's artist rights, where I couldn't just go out and fix the mural. We'd go to the artist first to give them the opportunity, so that I could just not decide that instead of a red flower that I like purple better, and I could change it.
But this is in a different city, but if you remember the Come Together mural.
Oh, yeah.
Building,
In South
right,
Euclid.
in South Euclid, that new property owner just painted over that part, and it got fixed, but that's the concern. It's just in between time when people aren't quite sure. So if there's some sort of system of something in place.
Absolutely.
And I think both Heights Arts and the SID can talk about that. Carolyn's the new director of the SID, and she's great, and she's established really great relationships with all of the people, all the property and tenants in the district. And so I think it'd be easy enough for her when it changes over for us to remind people of these rules and these systems. And that Joy mural was restored a handful of years ago, but that's been there since that was part of several that were built in the 60s. This is the only one left. And I don't know that they've had to touch up the one on the back of the Cedar Lee at all, and that's been there for 20 years.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we were talking about as if it was not painted on, but it was painted.
It is.
Yeah.
It doesn't look very good right now.
It's a little
It is.
faded.
It's
If
lost.
it was touched up, it needs it again.
Yeah.
Put that on the list.
It would be good if the brand packet or whatever you call it for
Yeah,
the color
yeah.
and the materials would also be shared with the city, so it goes to
Sure,
the file
yeah.
for the Cedar Lake Theater in multiple places.
Yeah.
Great idea.
That's-
Great idea. Yeah, and we did, just want to emphasize, we did explore I think that in the last meeting you proposed alternatives, like a heat applied vinyl, which we have done in brick locations. We're very familiar with that, or like a panel option. And the heat applied vinyl, what we found, if it's in a high traffic area, like a bus stop or across from a school, which is the exact location, right? Like, I think heat applied vinyl can look really cool because it's like, it almost looks like it's painted sometimes, but in this location, it's not the right location. It'll get picked at and it won't last. And so it's just not worth the investment. That's why we didn't want to do that in this location. Of course, we do love the idea that an artist as skilled as Arlen gets to hand paint it. I think you do see the quality versus like a digital reproduction too. And then the panel option, you have to drill into the building, and we are happy to explore that more with the building owner, but I think that he was kind of like, I'd rather have paint than be a bunch of drilled into this brick and drilling into the building. And then also just the budget wise, we didn't really budget for, building a whole system that would be right and last as long, and you can't scale it usually as big as the impact that we'd want to paint it. So that's why we kind of went back to painting after exploring those options, saying like, I think this still is really the best option for this, but we just wanted to mention that we did explore those two.
That's great. So it sounds like, to me, the combination of the Loxon product, which is specifically made for bricks, and then that this structure itself was not part of the original theater complex makes a difference.
Does the Luxon, I think she just said that. Does it have a minimum number or maximum number of barriers to guarantee vapor proof? Like the vapor barrier to exist, like beyond a certain number of layers? So for instance, if it got to be 5 layers thick.
Oh,
is
yeah,
it still a vapor
I don't know
barrier?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because sometimes those things have, because I guess then my question would be, like, the application itself has a lot of layers, just, right, like the design, but then also then for repairing or touching up in the future, then that would be something that, because if you put like 20 layers on over a period of 50-something years, what's gonna happen? Is it still gonna really be vapor?
Yeah.
Right,
That's
like,
I don't know the answer to
especially
that
with like
question.
the primer base.
And I think, you know, we anticipate a painted mural will last 20 years. So that, you know, like, they'll put the graffiti coat and like, you know, that is the intention of it, is to last about 20 years or more. I mean, these have lasted way more than 20 years. But I mean, I think we could provide information. to
Yeah,
the
we can provide information. I think when you do repaint it, I don't know enough to really answer you truly, but I mean, if you're like looking at the lower one, I think that the reason you'd repaint that is because basically it's worn down so much to the bare brick. I know there's still color up there, but it's really worn down, that I don't know if it's exactly like when you repaint it, that then you have like those 20 layers, like, you know, so I think that, I don't think it's exactly would be caked on, but I hear your point. We can definitely find
Can
it.
you use the Loxon on top of an old paint, you know, like for the back mural there? Can you now use Loxon on there?
Like if you were
Probably
touching it
not.
up,
touching it
It
up.
has to be.
Well, not, probably not, because if there's a brick and then there's a barrier that isn't vapor proof or vapor, you know, releasing, and then you put it on top, it wouldn't really matter. 'Cause that's kind of also, like, in terms of the graffiti barrier, is that also vapor, right?
That
Because
is
if it's not, then that would just case it in
Yeah.
and defeat the whole point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know there's a couple different products, and one of the graffiti coatings is specifically for brick that we've used before, because we've done, and it is more expensive. But I don't know, I was like really going a deep dive on the Loxon, and it's the graffiti, I didn't do the deep dive on it, but we can figure that out. I mean, it could be worth not doing the graffiti layer if it would impact the maintenance in terms of the long-term maintenance. I think that would make sense, but we can definitely, if you guys are able to commit to like giving you that information and figuring out if the graffiti coat actually makes sense for this.
Yeah, that would
application.
be good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it has a recommended primer too,
Yeah.
specific to that.
Yeah.
Right? Like an elastomer
Mhm.
primer.
Mhm.
Do you have any other questions?
No, I appreciate having this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for being willing to talk about it
It's
again.
helpful to have more context. Makes a difference.
I mean, my concern was that the building's not really a great urban. You know, it has no street storefront on one side. The other ones aren't accessible and they're too low. It's not the building. You know, to me, I just have an issue with painting brick in general, but you're showing me that you're being thoughtful about it. So
it's screaming for something to make it more urban fabric. And since we have a blank wall, that one was, as we were looking at all the walls, it just felt like something that we could do more placemaking in a
Well,
place
and
like
I
this.
think, I hope we made it clear at that last meeting that we think it's really great projects. You know, we just have to take our job seriously.
Yeah, I know, we appreciate it. Totally.
And I mean, I think it's good too, like moving forward for all like historic brick walls in Cleveland, there's so many paintings and like, depending on the age of them, it would affect them the same way, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of cities, just in general, have like really just gone hard on the heat applied vinyl. And I think it's like a great product and everything, but when you apply a bunch of them, in 5 years, they're all gonna start failing. And so I think you gotta be like, the paint actually lasts a lot longer. And so I think we went like a little hard on the heat applied vinyl. And I think sometimes there's a good case for it. If it's like, you know, if it was somewhere else, not this wall, I think it would be a great case, but I think there has to be a balance.
I just did 2 where I work, and those are the last 2 I'm doing. I think this is definitely the way to go. And I mean, I think one of the things I would just say, depending on what direction that you are going, if there's some further information that you need from us, if you're leaning towards an approval, we'd like it if we could get a contingent approval so that we can provide that information, because this is ARPA money and it has to be all spent by the end of the year. And so we are, getting ready to do these. And I think it's important to say, this is the only landmark building, but the other 5 murals are on old buildings because this is Cleveland Heights and we have lots of old buildings, and we're using the same strategy on all of the buildings.
Oh, are you?
Right.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
that's great.
Actually,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. I have a question, Brooke, just as a point of order. I received an email to my personal email from someone about this. Do I need to turn it into like
You
I
don't have to talk about it. I mean, you can just say that we received it, just to enter
Okay.
it.
So I received an email from Andrea Turner
In support or
in support of the project.
I guess for me, I'm just surprised it's not Tigers where it is.
The artist had a specific.
Yeah,
reason
don't
for that.
mention.
Yeah, but the story, when you hear him explain it, there's sparrows or?
Garden
and then-
swallows.
Garden swallows,
Yeah.
we talked about it,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he likes to go with animals that are native to the
Yeah.
regions
Yeah.
that he's working
Tigers are- He does have some beautiful tiger murals.
with. Yes.
He talks about his work like so poetically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Okay, so I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, with the understanding that they're gonna research the graffiti layer and make a decision about whether or not that should be applied. If it's elastomeric, yes, and if it is a problem with the barrier, then they just won't apply it.
And they'll be using the locks.
And yeah, the locks on are similar elasto paint for both the primer and paint.
And set a staff review over the final decision around the graffiti barrier.
Did you
Like
want it to come, or did you want to review it yourself, or did you want?
I don't think we need to.
Sure, okay.
I do have one detail I'm just noticing, the architect. Is it really gonna go all the way to the corner and cover that section of
that's-
detailing that
that's a
wraps
good
the
point.
corner? To me, it would be okay if it stopped.
I see what you're saying.
Brick.
You know what I mean?
Just
Because I think that would
assume-
look weird if you paint over part of it.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good
Leave
point.
the corner with that
Yeah.
detail, that little.
You know, where the
square.
bandage is kind of going over
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
line,
yeah,
that
yeah,
would
yeah.
stop there.
Sure, there's that straight line
Good
where you
point.
see the detailing.
Yeah, we can.
You say it's gonna stop where the 2 bricks are.
Can you point?
You got
It'll
it.
stop right
You
here.
changed
Yeah,
it.
rather
Oh,
than
no,
going,
are you saying,
On this line, or are you saying on this line?
Do you want it here?
yeah, stop
Yes.
right there.
Yeah.
Here, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep that main- Because it's kind of pseudo-symmetrical
Yeah.
on both
Yeah.
sides.
In the photo up above, it goes all the way.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it goes to the corner, so stopping.
Except you're losing some of the design.
even though it's
I
something.
think you can look at it.
I get it.
You know,
It'll be like this, it'll be like this. if we-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so
I can second.
we're gonna.
The motion is to approve as presented after the research about the graffiti layer is shared and for administrative approval.
With the acknowledgement that this building was not part of the original theater complex.
Can we get in that it stops at that brick?
And we will stop before
That's
there's
too
the
important.
brick design and trim details.
Right.
And when we submit, what we can do is we can submit the information on the paint and the graffiti. And then once we get a revised design from the architect, we can send it to her and she can, the artist, we can share it with you just so you see that we won't cover that little 3-foot portion there.
Any other discussion? I need a second.
I can second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
You guys were so excited.
I'm excited that, what's the timing of it? How quick is this gonna start? Soon, right?
Really, really soon, yeah. The other artists are gonna start playing probably within a couple weeks, so.
So what are the, I know you probably told us in the previous thing, but what are the other buildings?
Oh, if you scroll back.
Wherever you see it.
All the way,
Link
like all the way
Road.
towards the beginning.
You told us last time.
That's okay.
I've forgotten.
It should be
Once a
a
bicycle.
map. Oh, maybe I didn't include,
I think I might have, I think it was in the original, but I was.
Oh,
I
yeah,
went to read it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's on
Oh.
the bike store, the
I'm
bike
gonna listen and
store.
see if you get it
Well, I'm
right.
gonna see if let's see if this is.
Yeah.
You're the young one, you should remember that. On the bike building by the UDF,
Okay.
on that wall facing the UDF parking
Oh,
lot.
that would be nice.
Um,
To go with classic
walking up the
pieces.
street, okay, that's one.
The old school.
Then there, yeah, the old
Oh,
square.
there it is.
Then- Oh, yeah, then,
There it
yeah, there we go, okay, go ahead. Central Outreach,
Yeah.
to the old Sierras.
Exactly. Or the Elgin. That's the old Elgin
Oh,
furniture.
Before that, it was Sierras.
Oh, really?
Tom's going into the way, way back.
Oh, okay.
The way back time.
Cedar Lee, Cozumel, Green Olive, which is the Remax building currently, but it's changing over. And then on the other side, the Anatolia Cafe, their office building side.
Facing
that's-
Brian's Marathon,
Right.
old Brian's Marathon.
Oh, okay.
And see all those cars parked there from when it was a Brian's Marathon, like now it's a gas station center.
Yeah,
Cars
so there's
parked
no
there,
cars.
Convenience to
That'll be nice.
Okay, I was having gotcha for a second.
I know, the boxes, it's a long district, we had to kind of bring them
I thought
together.
you were painting on Anatolia, that's a nice one.
Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't know.
no, the other,
The other
Other
end of
side.
Anatolia. He's very excited about it. They're all super cool. It was a really fun process.
Good. I think it's great. We're excited and I'm glad there was a good solution.
Yeah.
yeah,
Appreciate you
thank
guys.
you all.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
thank you, thanks for doing the extra homework.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, no, thanks for
Thanks for
signing
bringing
it.
We appreciate that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, what's her name?
You're O'Donnell.
Oh, hi, yeah.
I used to work here in Elbert for sure.
Wow. Recognizing all your nominations. Oh, yeah, which, the Lady Silva. Yeah,
Good
so.
again. Have fun.
No, it's actually my class this week, so.
You're gonna have so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah,
Let me know if you want to get inside. I'll see you guys back. That's great.
Sorry about my.
I was like, I just felt it and I was like, quickly, like,
Yeah. I didn't want to cough through you.
since it was
At another time, we should have a conversation if we want to think about, technical report or some version of something around painting brick.
Just to provide a recommendation.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, I'm gonna make a recommendation that Eric or whoever study adding the requirement for painting brick to go to APR.
I agree.
Painting brick is not meant to be painted, it's different from wood or metal. And it was great to have this conversation, but not everybody's going to this level of thought. People,
Right.
you know, and I go back to HGTV, watch these shows, they're in Texas, California, North Carolina, they're painting brick. There's no freestyle there, it's not an issue. And it's also for a quick show remake.
Right.
But brick is, you know, hopefully forever. And it doesn't need to be painted. If there is a case for it, then somebody should go to the board to make
There
that
were a few
case.
periods that did paint.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
There's some types that
there's
are
some
made
things
for it.
that
Certain periods that did
Right,
like
right.
the 30s.
but
Parishes
I
that
think-
build, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say parishes that build a church, they have the money for stone and then you paint the brick gray, you know what I mean?
Right.
Things like
Yeah.
that.
But I also think that some people are choosing to paint the brick to just make it look better, but
Yes.
not
pointing it.
Yeah.
And so they're not actually repairing the things that are wrong, they're just covering
They're
it
just
up with
covering it
paint.
up.
And so that's a
Maintenance
big
issues,
problem,
yeah.
right? Like if we're doing a
Especially with load bearing.
you know, like those parapet walls. If someone's out to review those walls for falling and they can't, and it just has a coat of paint over it and it doesn't really show what's happening with the actual integrity of the
What are the
brick or the motor. More, well, you know, in Cleveland Heights, we've got a couple parapet walls fall
Yeah.
over the last
Oh,
couple
oh,
of
I know,
years.
the car, the
And
commercial
so
buildings.
imagine if you're an inspector and you're trying to assess the stability of that and it's covered with a coat of paint.
Yeah.
Right. There's just.
Especially like in this circumstance, it's like a false front.
Right,
So it's like,
even more, right.
yeah,
There's also, there's a lot of buildings in Cleveland Heights that should be landmarks that aren't. And there's nothing stopping an owner to paint them.
Yeah.
The Heights are, what is it, the Medical Arts Building?
I mean, there's one
Could be
on
painted tomorrow.
that little storefront on
That's
Lee
all, I
Road
mean,
just got painted.
I don't know what the formal, do we make a formal request somehow that this be considered?
I can talk to Eric. I know our law department has always said painting anything is.
But we're not
free
saying, we're
expression.
not judging the color, that was the
Right,
issue in the
yeah.
nineties, I believe.
Yeah.
We're not,
It's not the
no
color.
free speech, cultural suppression or whatever. This is
just the
about the
material.
material.
It's a material
Yeah.
issue.
and it's not like we're saying, we're just like, hey, these are the better options if you wanna do this
Yeah,
to,
go to review.
for the longevity of your structural wall.
Or make sure that.
Wouldn't there be like a technical easement already?
Well, it's already in our the design guidelines that Taylor Wellman,
Mhm.
Taylor wrote for us, so why not adopt it
Yeah,
as policy?
but that it would require APR.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It wouldn't go to us unless it's a landmark.
I was reminded in the middle of our conversation when I looked at Kara, it was like, oh, I remember, wasn't there, who was the purple cellular company?
Oh, yeah,
Metro.
Yeah.
And they wanted
they
to,
wanted to paint
that building,
All right.
purple, just there.
And I mean, I noticed this driving by last week, that little, I've always kind of liked the modern building, that Zox Bakery, and what was the Park Seal Salon or something. Well, it got painted like the turquoise blue. The brick.
On Lee Road.
Over by
Yeah. Because it's being turned into a waste.
Oh, yeah.
So this
Bakery.
blonde brick that could have been cleaned, and you could do signage, is now painted aqua.
Edmonds took over that building,
And I'm sure it didn't go to any review.
No, not for that.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like if you have to get signage reviewed, why not get painted?
Perfect.
or masonry.
All right. Okay, let's go back. Staff report, anything exciting happening that you need to update us on?
As far as potential landmarks, the Gunderson duplex, they're just gonna go ahead and go through planning commission in August instead of waiting for the ordinance updates so that they can avoid that stuff. So they're gonna initiate the landmarking process. The Gunderson,
What does that mean, they're going through planning commission?
so they would come to landmark first and then go to planning commission to be recommended for the landmark steps.
The Gunderson, it's the,
Overlook.
The doubles.
thank you.
Series
The
of
doubles,
doubles.
mid-century modern-ish, right?
Well, the mid-century.
On the hill.
Mid-century, On the hill.
So we are recommending those get landmark.
They have approached, John Grabowski has approached the city, it hasn't come before us yet. So
Yeah.
are you saying it's going to planning commission first, or it's coming to us?
It would come
first?
here first. So they were waiting for the ordinance to be updated so they could avoid going to planning. But they're just gonna go ahead and start because we don't know when it's going to be
And I
updated.
mean, planning doesn't ever say no.
Yeah, it'll just, it's like a rubber stamp.
Okay, so that would come to us, not at the next meeting, which is our
Certification.
certifications meeting, but then the one in September, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll come to us September.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anything else? And we're still just waiting. Is it actually gonna be reviewed, the ordinance at, council of the whole
Yes,
next week?
I believe so. I know the law department is supposed to have some updated comments for council.
Are we to see them answer.
I hope so. I will ask again. Usually it comes in pretty late. But I'll ask.
And I did not put together, here's the other places, so I'm gonna try and work on that. You sent me some stuff.
I can forward what you sent.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, with Cleveland.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Our August meeting is our certificates meeting, not our, is there any possible chance we could change the date slightly? I won't be able to attend it.
Me either.
What's the date now?
It's the 4th. Like, I could do the 5th, or the 3rd, or anytime the following week.
I'll be out of town until the 6th. August 11th.
I could do that.
Tuesday, but is there another, something happening with the city that we need to worry about?
Not that I'm aware of. If there is, then I could move it down here. Yeah.
That was
Okay,
for
does
me.
that work for you?
To what day?
August 11th.
I think I will be in Chicago that day. Sorry.
What do you,
Actually,
So
that would
we
be.
gain 2, but we lose 1. The rest of you are okay on the 11th?
so far?
Yep, we can do that. Cool, that would be great. Just try and sort of about and we, I need to go through what our current ones are that we have available for us to review, and I'll try and get those out to you in advance, but if you have committed to doing a rewrite, please do your rewrite.
And we also, our law department is asking us to start noticing properties before we do the certification tax,
So
so
we need to know well in advance.
at least 10 days, yeah.
Did we send a letter to Amanda Mayfield, who had the former,
And when we went on it, you and I went on it.
up the hill?
I did, I never heard from him. I
Wasn't
forgot.
that interesting? And did we send I think we should send a letter to the lady at Devonshire and Denton, is it Denton? The one who was supposed to be interested, and she did, that gorgeous house at the corner there, southwest corner. She was supposed to be interested, and even though she didn't respond to me, I think if she got a letter from the city, it might help her interest again in land.
Can you forward her? Did she reach out to you directly somehow?
No, she just didn't respond again. She said, I'll call you back, or call me again, blah, blah, blah. It never did when
Can you send me her name? Do you have it still or no?
I can get it easily.
Is it Harcourt meeting?
That one that's, the flat roof, that has a swimming pool and a garden.
Oh, it's like.
Gorgeous
a
house,
Italian
landscaping.
kind of- It's like an Italian.
Yeah,
villa
it's a
style.
lot of nationalities, yes, that one.
On Fairmount?
Built around the Oregon. No, it's the corner of Denton and Devonshire.
Oh,
I went on a tour, we were there too, of Mornington Lanes, this past weekend. It was really interesting. So-
I'm sorry, I had to miss
It was good, but I had an informal conversation with the woman who gave the presentation.
Sarah?
Went right out, yes, who has lived there almost her whole life. And I said, have you guys ever considered being a landmark? Your essentially HOA rules are much stricter than what we would do. And she said, oh, I've tried. We can't get anyone to agree on anything, but most of them agree that we don't want to add that into the mix. So I was
I knew
like,
it came
darn.
up before.
And then I said, well, thank you for making sure we were accurate on our description of the Victorian. And oh, yes, we wanted to
Certainly strict on
plan
the
that we were very
exteriors.
precise in our description of the Victorian. But they were great. That was really interesting. And there's a fair amount of the original estate, Briggs estate, still there, which I was not expecting.
I would say half, at least half of the original is there.
Just basically missing the main house,
The main house,
and everything else seems to be there.
that's right.
But yeah, so we can cross that off the listed on my phone for landmark. It was my
That's
secret
what they
focus,
said.
it's mostly where
Yeah.
I went, because there's like, oh,
Should we talk about the Bowman meeting at all? What was there?
Are we still talking about potential landmarks?
potential or landmark properties, yes, what are you?
Okay, so, acquainted with the guy who owns the Silsby Park Station,
Mhm.
and he bought the 2,000 Lee Road building, which is this cantilever modernist building,
Oh.
a few months ago.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Century.
Yeah, and the architect
Do you know?
is an Ohio listed architect. I forget his name, but I use this building to like talk about significance uplift for another building. He only has like a couple of examples of mid-century.
So it sounds like you've done some research. 'cause I don't-
Yeah, I have it.
All I knew was that it's built in 58, but my friend, well, this person, Kevin Smith, he owns a few other properties here. But he, conversationally said he'd consider it, and he owns the fire station, so he knows.
That's
That
better,
would be
that's better
fantastic.
mid-century modern than those double houses in Oakville.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't personally think those overlook houses should be landmarked, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, that building's really cool.
Favorite.
Pardon?
That's a really good example.
Yeah,
This is a good.
I mean, it's a cantilever.
And it would sound like hopefully, because along that stretch of Lee, there's a bunch of mid-century office buildings or apartments that are really cool, just haven't been explored for.
I think that's the best one.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that one's
probably
really
it's the
cool.
cost Other than Medusa.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, much fun to do so.
So I don't know how that,
So,
Is that a
what I would
little bit
recommend,
Or no?
we would do an outreach, like a
Oh.
letter, but it would be helpful to have information. So if you or you
Yeah,
can
I'm fine
give
with that.
me info about it,
I'm sure he'd probably be interested too, so.
Yeah, for sure.
and the owner is Kevin Smith, is that right?
That was a
Or
rabbit hole discovery.
Kevin Smith.
Deep rabbit hole, so I'm definitely going to share.
So, the county records.
And before I looked at you.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I guess that guy also
I
owns
was there
the
with my gas, I
the-
run a lot, and it's like, well, yes, I used to.
That's really funny. That's where my kids live in that building.
And I guess it was designed as a multi-tenant office space,
Mhm.
and it still is. Like, I wonder if
Yeah, it
it looks
has
like
its
it
same
hasn't
use.
changed much.
Honestly, it could provide them a route to use state historic tax credits if they ever wanted to in the future.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Is this still a discussion of landmarks? I guess so. So those pylons, I'm calling them pylons, the gate to the Park Synagogue property on Euclid Heights.
They're gone.
One is gone completely, and the other one, I took a picture of.
Weren't those the ones that were original and decent?
Yes,
Yeah.
both, not too bad. And I thought they were gonna keep those and work with them. And I don't trust they'll ever rebuild the ones that make them.
What, was that somebody like with a backhoe going, oops, like?
I don't know, they're just gone, it's like gone. There's one,
There's
the
the one on the
smaller
right
one.
side is left.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they took some of it away. It's difficult. Well, I've got a picture of it. I want to see it. But that one's still there. At least it was a week ago. Still there. And of course, they closed off that entrance.
Yeah.
So I could see maybe they were afraid of bumping it, but of course, if they destroyed it. So I don't know. But I thought they were going to keep those intact anyway.
Well, I don't think they ever mentioned or moved back down, so,
So Brooke, it would be great if you could reach out to them
Yeah.
and ask.
I mean, it could have
I
been.
can take a picture for you
construction
guys.
accident.
I actually live right next
Right
door
next
to
door.
it.
In Mayfield, I don't
It would
think.
be good because I think in the conversation, those were, we
Not
were
too
gonna
bad.
stay,
Not
and
too
then the
bad.
Mayfield ones, they were gonna replace. And they were gonna mention. Yeah.
But I don't trust the Mayfield because now they're saying, if they're not doing it with a big restoration, they say they'll do it when they do the apartments. Well, that may never get done anyway.
Right,
So I don't trust that Mayfield. And that's even more important, really.
yeah, but the existing one is now gone.
The left side definitely.
Was not part of the conversation of what they were gonna remove from the existing.
No, but we did vote to keep them. We did vote to keep them on Euclid Heights too, of course.
So that's definitely worth not just a temporary.
Is that somebody trying to call in or something?
No, I think that's,
Are you getting emails?
It's like, well,
I think for some reason, it will make that noise every time someone.
like, it says the magic word.
Okay, and then talking about existing landmarks. That Beaumont conversation, you went, who went? Margaret and Owen, you went too. So talk to us about it.
Well, I spoke up and said a lot of things, not everything I might have said, but anyway, let's see.
And so for the record, this is regarding Beaumont's
The last
public
meeting
meeting where they discussed demolishing the patronage.
was for the public, but it wasn't a governmental public, meeting like in 2019 where we actually voted. The latest plan, they did go on and on about the history of the building. They, of course, gave the same reasons they did in 2019, that they don't want to support it, they don't. Supposedly, they went through with the architect Jack Bylowski Jr., they supposedly went through 21 different options for different kinds of uses. I don't think they put much into that. And what could they have been if they really didn't want to make it apartments or, offices supposedly, so I don't know what that was worth really. The latest plan supposedly, maybe just to appease people, I don't know, is to save parts of the building there. And they suggest they might want to save parts of the building. Details, put them in different locations.
I think that was a concession they made in response to your passionate discussion, that they came up with that on the fly.
I don't think so.
You don't?
No.
Okay, that's what my impression
But yeah, I mean, in connected with negative comments they've gotten in the past, yeah, but I don't think that was on the fly.
Okay, got it, okay.
But because I said that was kind of an old style thing before the real preservation movement took off. Like they did at the Eels Mansion in Euclid Heights, an overlook, they left a wall there and a door, 2 doors. But anyway, I mean, you can do it again. I mean, they did that at once West 117th and Lake with the Christian Science Church. But anyway, so they were saying that. Did you notice that they contradicted themselves in that? First, they were talking about it would cost $4-something million to stabilize it. Somehow they came out. It sounds kind of high, just to stabilize without doing any special anything. But then later on, they contradicted that sort of, and they're saying all it would be with the mansion, everything else would stay. Just that little mansion, but that little house was gone.
Tearing down Cleveland Heights is Downton Abbey. I rode my bike there the other day and I'm like, oh my God.
I know. I think the bottom line is that they do not see it as an asset at all.
No.
And how do you make, and they just do not see it as an asset. And so.
The one woman said it's not historical. In my road, I don't think that's historical at all.
I mean, it's literally a vestige. It's like connected to Euclid Avenue, the Gilded Age. You know what I mean?
So I said, it's very historic. It's very historical to your school.
Right.
So then somebody later said, that's not a big part of our history. We have much longer history. Well, the ones on Overlook are gone too. Everything else they had was gone too. Euclid Avenue and 55th Street, they're all gone.
Yeah, but I think that they don't care about that, and the fact that it's not a public use building and stuff limits then the pressure from the community for them.
Yeah, because nobody sees it.
Jack Bylowski said nobody sees it. He said, you see a little inch of it. What was it from North Park? It's not true.
There's so much potential there.
You can see it in the winter from Lee. And you can see it very easily from that first drive on North Park. However, I don't think any of that is relevant, how much you see it. It can be a wonderful historic building and you can be a big drive from the public street.
I mean,
that's not important.
I've never been in it, but it's like of the level of that you would, a house museum in another state or
The
something.
inside has been compromised quite a bit. I mean, not all of it. There are some very nice rooms, but it's not like 100% intact on the inside from that era of construction. But there are some very nice rooms and some very unusual, wonderful things in there. But they don't care.
When I mean, this is going into place, what does that do?
It depends on what the ordinance looks like when it gets.
It'd be the same thing, wouldn't it be like 3 months before demolition?
Well, but the thing is, they would have to present plans.
So they're gonna come to us with plans. They have done a full study with
Ted
professors.
Bylarski.
Well, the architects have done their study, and then they have also done economic feasibility study with professor at CSU that they are going to share with us publicly. I mean, they are much better prepared for this than the last time.
But is it like, you know, as I say, if you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail?
I
You know
know,
what I mean?
Todd,
Like,
I know, but
you know. have
the
they
last
approached
time
others?
there were, you know, things that they didn't do, due diligence that they didn't do, plans that they didn't have.
I mean, the only
And I
reason
think
it stopped the last time. is
that's
they
why,
didn't
'cause
have
planning-
an approved plan
Right,
for what.
and that
was
is not the case this time.
Yeah,
So
at the
I
same
think
time,
that we can talk till we're blue in the face, but the fact that you have an administration, an entire organization that refuses to see that building as an asset, it's gonna be a real issue.
are you, selling? You know, like somebody
I
else.
mean, my organization had a whole conversation with them about how to go about selling, monetizing.
Oh, you
it.
did?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
and they
okay.
refuse,
They just
they
didn't want to.
will not hear it.
I thought it was interesting that they had their attorney at the meeting.
And that's the other problem, they have one of the best preservation attorneys on their side for this, they hired Tony Coyne.
Oh,
Oh,
well, yeah, that goes either way. But,
Well, right,
Sounds like they can afford to fix it up.
if they could, if they saw a use for it, but this is the problem, how do you
Yeah,
convince
they
them
don't value it.
that there's a viable use for it?
I mean,
they don't
it could be
value
like
And we-
the
history or the structure.
Right.
college club phase two.
It could be, it absolutely could be that.
It could be,
And actually, I mean, it's fairly walkable to public transportation in 2 directions.
I mean,
It's on the walk,
it
I know.
could be
oh yeah,
cultural organizations,
it could be.
Yeah.
like the Taylor Roots,
What did I tell them?
Coventry School.
Affordable senior housing for women Beaumont alumni.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
their big argument was
I said
that,
that night at the meeting,
Oh, you did? Great.
yeah, she did.
when I was trying not to
It
cry.
was senior
It was
housing after all those interior changes were made with the nuns.
The argument was that they need a track. They need a running track.
But, okay, so I'm gonna just say, we're concerned about the building. Everybody in the city will flip out when they start taking trees down.
They have a plan to keep the trees.
So, what is it gonna be like?
The
a
track is
like
gonna
this?
run around the trees, they're gonna show us a wooded track.
Oh, okay.
Did they say anything about salvaging things from the building?
Yeah.
I told them
came
that
up
I
with
would
at the meeting.
expect them to have a full house there, documentation plan and salvage as much as they could.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, that Christian sign in the building at 117 and,
Yeah.
that, they put the little cupola on there, God, it looks ridiculous.
Well,
It's like a tool,
something.
But there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, we can
Well, until,
All
say
we
no,
do is
but that
hear them,
doesn't
but I
prevent
don't,
anything.
I don't know.
And I would imagine that
Well, since
make
19,
assumptions about what council will do with our rewrite, but I can't
Since
imagine they're gonna
19.
give us any more.
and they really need this.
since
They
19,
really need this track.
they always feel in competition with these bigger, wealthier schools. And since 2019, those other 2 schools, Ursuline, the one in Pepper Pike merged with this other place in Pennsylvania. And then the Notre Dame is gone, so I mean, they have that in their head.
The problem is, how long is this?
Well,
How
yeah.
long is
Oh,
Beaumont
it's-
gonna survive?
That's what that's what's in my
It's
head.
very
The issue is that
short-sighted,
this
yes,
school
yes,
closed
it's
because
very
they-
short-sighted. But I don't think that there's any more conversations to get them thinking differently. Let
I
me
mean,
just
yeah,
put
if you
it
have
that
that conversation with them, and you can see, like I said, College Club, is a
There's so much.
model for it,
So we'll just
I
look at
mean,
that when it comes to.
I
us.
always liked your idea of like a land swap.
Karma. Yeah. Which nothing has happened there. No.
It almost happened.
Does Dollar even still own?
I think they still do. They sold the house.
Okay, on that happy news. The ordinance is still under review. It'll be interesting to see what survives of the rewrites.
Oh, is that what's going on right now?
So we'll see. I imagine we won't get any demo, any
Any power. I mean, teeth.
strengthening
Yeah,
to
yeah.
what we currently have. But I don't know how the rest was.
They weren't there.
So, okay, landmark, release event will kind of pull into America 250 planning. So we have a couple of programs potentially for the America 250. And so, Anne, do you want to talk about Roy Larrick's insane price tag?
I'm trying to get him to reconsider that. Brooke has been helpful in getting a conversation with Eric and me. She's been funneling things between us. So I got Roy Larrick to do a proposal for a talk that would take place at the community center with a walk into Forest Hill Park afterwards. And it would be an illustrated talk. He would talk about, the Early Settlers Association is doing a new survey of the Moses Cleveland trees to find out how many are still standing. And then they also want to create a new category, which is just heritage trees, which is not like Moses Cleveland where they have to be before 1796. They would just be trees that are old or have some significance, like the 1918 trees, for instance, the fig tree oaks. So categories of trees that have an historical. So, and then he was going to talk about, there's one Moses Cleveland tree in Cleveland Heights, and it's private property and it's visible from Keene Park. So he would show a picture of that because we can't walk over there and see that. And the lady is apparently really proud of this tree, so she's taking good care of it. But the new survey that the Early Settlers Association is doing wants to build in a preservation piece so that things that are designated historic trees can have some kind of protection of some kind. So that's a new.
So they don't get toned down like that beautiful one in front of those Prospect Row houses.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
God, that cherry tree was beautiful.
So he wrote something up, and then he said that his fee was going to be $500. And I said, well, I'm not sure this is going to fly. So he said, I'm going to be checking with peers and see what they charge for something similar, and let me get back to you.
I thought it would be higher, actually.
I did too. Well, I'm trying to get him down to 400. So
Sometimes he's charged in the past, like the Historical Society, and sometimes he's done it for free.
yeah, this, I think if the city can approve it, I think it's going to be a really strong program. I think people will be really interested. I think because he's heading up this new survey, will bring, which is going to be crowdsourced to some degree. So he could enlist a bunch of people to like participate, from this talk, because he can't be all over the city everywhere all at once. And he's like asking me, well, can you tell me about trees in Cleveland Heights? And I said, well,
aren't we paying for that?
Yeah, aren't we paying for that? So his idea was to get Andre Trapp, the forester, to in his workaday for the next couple of months, because this is projected for late October, to just kind of keep his eyes out and make a little list of trees, and then Roy would go and photograph them and measure them and stuff. And then he wanted Andre to come and give a little like 10-minute, 15-minute thing about the canopy in Cleveland Heights, and which I thought would be really nice to hear from the forester. But I thought, he's not getting any money. But we'll see what Roy comes up with. I am excited about the program. I think it would be really great. I just don't know what Eric and the planning commission go for or not go for.
Yeah, I can bring it up. I don't think that should be a problem, but I could just check with them to make sure.
Really?
Yeah, I can.
All right.
I mean, I feel like the general rate
Continue
for like
the
speaking and stuff is like 200 usually. Like, I feel like for a whole walking tour, if he's gonna like 400 seems, I don't know, but it is still a lot of money.
You think it's fair because there's a walking tour?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and the neat thing is
As long
that-
as he does the work and like
Yeah, he's got to do that.
finds the trees.
I told him I'm not going to like him. So there are these Moses Cleveland trees in the East Cleveland side of Forest Hill Park. And they're in kind of rough shape. A lot of them have fallen down. But there is apparently a cucumber magnolia, which is native to Ohio, that there aren't that many. So he said there's a really good one in the park, so he would also show people that one. And so he can talk about these things, he knows trees. So I thought it would be
Good, okay.
and I've heard him talk, I mean, he was.
He's engaging.
And would we all be walking, or like, do we need transportation to get to other?
Well, the reason we said the community center is that people could just walk.
Mhm.
So he would just lead people all the way over to Forest Hill Park. So they have to be
So they're
able-
close enough that we can walk to.
It's right there. Yeah, it's right there. So we can't get into buses and stuff like that.
No, but, and I think with whatever description, we would need to be very clear that there's the presentation, but then the walking tour and expect to walk 2
Exactly.
miles or whatever it is.
Exactly. And people may bail.
Right.
Yeah.
But
And
we
that's
just need
fine.
to be upfront about it, that there's no transportation.
And I told him, he said, how long do you think the presentation should be? And I said, well, I'd say with attention span and everything, 45 minutes is probably
The most.
most.
Yeah.
So, and then the walking tour, he said an hour. But I have to talk to the community. Okay, well, I will, yeah. But the community center, I have to find out, there's this room called 1A, 1B, which has got a big monitor, it's not a monitor, it's a screen. So he put in an equipment requirement at the bottom of his proposal that I'll have to see what the city can do about that. A microphone, a projector.
I'm pretty sure all of that is already at the community center.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure a microphone is, but I feel like they should have that.
There's definitely a screen.
The city, providing something, if there isn't anything, right?
I could ask Cons for that.
I assume we don't pay the city to be the city, to use a room that's owned by the city.
Yes, no, I could, I'm pretty sure I could put that.
Get that waived. Okay,
That's great. And then the other one is the,
Forest Hill Park.
right?
Generally, I see the presentation that we walked to where the mansion is, the meadow where the golf course was. We walked to the ravine, the water features, lake, and then we return, bridge. So that's a pretty ambitious.
that's a lot of walking.
It is pretty ambitious. And then I haven't even considered the presentation beforehand. And I was hoping that Danny would help me on that. We've been looking up some stuff. I'm trying to focus on, from the original construction of the spa, getting some trying to find tote maps. Oddly enough, the University of Akron has a repository of tote maps to find, actual images of, possibly what the estate looked like, or even finding the old Sanborn atlases to find if they had images of what existed on the property. I've had to go down to the Cleveland Public Library, the map room, or going down to Western Reserve. I'd do that shortly, just to find out, locate stuff.
I can ask the county archives, like where my office is.
Yeah, the Cuyahoga
And that
County,
map.
would be a good resource too.
Are there still remnants of this farm?
No, it's the house. It's the house that burnt down.
Oh, that was
It
the-
started off as a
oh.
spot.
There's a sizable history room at the East Cleveland Public Library,
Yes.
which.
I might have something.
Which,
So I had thought of the presentation, because there's just so much to present about this.
I think if like, we have people park in that parking lot by where, on the Cleveland Heights side where there's that pavilion, there's like a little mechanical house there that,
Off of Forest Hill Boulevard.
yeah,
Yeah.
because then we can like do a loop, the house location, Corey, come back to the car, give people the option, like reconvene before crossing the street to go do the loop around like the pond. So if people don't feel like they couldn't do that last part or something, they have the option to like, or if they need to stop at their car to get a snack or
Right.
water.
That's a good.
I'm sorry?
There's one of those little books about.
Sharon Greger.
Greger wrote it, yeah. That might have
It's one of those images of
Or more
America.
pictures.
Images of America.
Images of America books.
It's called-
Yeah.
I think it's just called Forest
It
Hill.
might even be.
Sharon Greger is the name of the. So it sounds like both of these programs, yours is a go if we can get funding, which maybe we can.
Yeah.
And then yours, you guys feel like, Jim and Danny, that it's happening?
Yeah.
You think you're excited? Good, okay.
So next would be guided.
We might just need,
When is yours?
September 28th,
26th,
26th.
Saturday.
So mine is gonna be either, October 17th or 24th, depending on the community center availability.
I will ask them tomorrow then.
I see the ghost tour still on here. Should I find out about it? Still, it might be too late.
I actually reached out to them to see if they do those, like if they guide them, and they do have like, they are conducting one that's just about like tragic deaths or something like that. So they said we could either like tag on to theirs and just like kind of co-promote, or we could like have our own like Cleveland Heights branded America 250 tour.
Whatever.
I mean, I know October I might not be, I'm going to California.
When are they doing, do you know when they're doing this?
It's on their calendar, I can't remember, but I could check.
But it would be, it might be just easier to
Just tag on.
co-promote, right?
Yeah.
Those are pretty
And
popular.
then we can just attend it.
The young people I work with are really into ghost tours when we go out.
And my girls just did when we were on vacation last week. We're doing a ghost tour.
I always get grumpy about them. I should go because I'm sure they're lots of fun, but I'm
I mean, I did one in DC, it was
preemptively
great.
grumpy.
I did a just like
Someone
going
in
to
New Orleans.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, for Commission is Soul's Twilight Tour. Or,
That's
or-
cute. That's cute. But yeah, no, that's great. On October 29th, that's perfect. Yeah, why don't we just, if they're willing to do it.
Yeah, they offered that.
Yeah, that's what I vote for. So then we would have 3 programs, which is great. And then an open house, we just have to find a date for the schoolhouse.
Yeah.
Open house?
Just an open house at the schoolhouse.
Oh, meet and greet.
For the
Yeah.
open doors.
And maybe we'll pull out some old maps or do something interesting, but we can do it as part of Open Doors and have the brochure and. Sorry.
I know, yeah.
It's all right, it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that when we were talking about old landmarks. We presented to the high school. I presented their plaque, and I think I ended up being more of the program than I was expecting on Saturday night, which I was like, wait, what? I have to. Luckily, we had written it up nicely, so I'm like, I'll just read exactly what it says, and people were interested. I mean, it was good. I'm like, no one wants to hear
Was
somebody
that
talk
part of
about
the big
history.
celebration?
It was their gala event on Saturday night, which got to go free, which was good. So it was expensive.
Yeah, no, I-
Yes, so they had a whole presentation, which they talked about the foundation, and they talked a little bit about something else, and then they had me talk about the history and do the presentation on the plaque, and then they had musicians, and the high school musicians, which were amazing, and they had 3 speakers from the high school talking about how important it was to them and their careers as students and everything. It was actually a really nice program, but it was good. And they are already, the plaque and the certificate got a little misplaced because all of us were like, oh wait, who was supposed to be in charge of that? So I think it was like stuck, whatever. They found it, and now they're gonna figure out where to put it, which is great. I don't know if it'll go outside or inside, but wherever they put it, I think it'll be good. So that was nice. Anyway, so that was a good thing. But yeah, and then the other thing was just if the police are doing an event for that National Night Out or anything.
Josie seemed interested, so I'm gonna check with her to see if they decided.
Yeah, and if they do, let me know because then I can at least have a nice car, vintage car. It's not
Right.
really vintage, but display.
Are these two?
Vintage car. The car that the officer who was killed in the line of duty, his name just went to my head. Not Patton, he's the one who ran. West, Jason West. It's the car he was, patrol car he was in. My museum, the police museum has a vintage fleet of cars that we restore and stuff, and Cleveland Heights had taken that out of service, but didn't want to, it's all tied up, so then our fleet, they donated it to our fleet, so it has been restored, and it doesn't go out much because it's a hard one, right?
Yeah.
But it would be a good one to bring back. And I think they brought it to Cleveland Heights for his fundraiser. There's an annual fundraiser for a scholarship for him.
What year is it from?
On the website, I think I wrote about it. I should know off the top of my head. But it would be, it's the old green when the cars were green. Cleveland Heights is that. Stated for anyone. But yeah, so for sure, I already sort of put it on their radar that we would potentially be doing that, and they can probably do it. It just depends on the date. 2001, Crown Victoria.
They don't work on these cars at the Justice Center, do they? Where do they do it?
So with the museum owns some of them and other ones are privately owned. Most of them are stored in a specially built barn owned by a private collector down in Medina.
Oh,
But they go out,
wow,
they go to
that's
events.
far away.
In the summer, they go to 5 or 6 events every week. It's a whole thing. People are really into them. We're having a car show on July 19th. You want to come to the Justice Center? All right. Tell
Where
me.
will it be? But
So how's your new space?
Oh, it's getting worse every time. Every time I
That's
get a
too
new
bad.
update.
I was picturing like all these cars on, Streeter.
It's small, it's less than half the size of their current space. And then we just found out that they're not even they're renovating $90-some million that they're spending on that building. Not build out our section, our little 2,000
Oh, it's gonna be a
square foot
shell.
things with no electrical. It's a
You get a door.
They put in doors, but they didn't put in a double door,
It's
so
a
like
garage.
we have big equipment like that will not. It's a whole thing. Anyway, we can participate, so once we know, I just need to get it on their schedule, so they show up.
Are these are these gonna be the same event though, the open doors and the
Yeah,
booklet release?
Yes,
Okay.
I would think, right?
yeah, that makes sense.
And I think the open house at the schoolhouse is casual,
Yeah,
not like a whole big thing.
So it's 6
Maybe
days.
we pull out, no,
just
there's
the open doors.
a program in Ohio called Ohio Open Doors, and it's out of the state, Ohio History Center. And they encourage communities to open their doors to historic buildings, so it's like a 2-week period.
Is this online, this list here?
No, but I can send it to you guys. This is
That'd be
just a
great.
spreadsheet.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Are we not doing Parks and Rec?
I don't even know what they're,
You don't look like
doors,
they're
like
gonna
a-
have anybody coming there for a while.
I know we talked about it at one point.
yeah,
so
I don't
just-
know
I
what.
think
It
that they're
doesn't
not
look like
that
it.
far
It's
enough
not ready
ready
for
for.
A lot of construction going on. Main entrance
So
all
it'll be
closed
like,
off
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
next year.
Do you wanna pick a date between the 10th and the 26th then?
For the schoolhouse.
Yeah, the booklet release and open doors.
So we have, our meeting is, regular September meeting is on the 1st, correct?
Yes.
So do we wanna, I mean, do we just want a weeknight? Like do the 15th or 16th or 17th? Somewhere in there, everyone?
I'm going
What's the date?
to a conference that week, but you could do it without me.
Which week?
Wait, which day?
Either
15,
the
16,
15, 16, 17, or 22, 23, 24.
I would be also at a conference on 15,
So 22?
or do it without.
Okay. 22nd? Let's do it on the 22nd. Okay. Does that work, or is there something else
Tuesday?
happening? City-wise, is there anything that we need to worry about?
I think so. I can check.
What time are we talking about?
6:30. I don't know.
That would be for the open doors thing.
Yeah, just the open house over at the schoolhouse.
No, nothing on the 22nd.
Okay. Schoolhouse, open house. Okay, thanks for hanging in, everyone. Maybe passed over.
Is that all hands on deck?
I think it would be good to have whoever can be there, yes. And
I can be there.
I think not gonna think about it until August. And
Yeah,
we'll
right.
plan what it's gonna be.
Historical Society board used to be
Yes.
Yes, maybe it can be a joint.
there. People would
That
just
would
be
be
there.
Be nice.
It's true.
And then I don't know about like if the library is gonna do anything. I can ask Randy again.
I'm still trying to get Chris.
Oh, for open doors.
I gotta call Chris.
Well, they
Roy.
were gonna do something around, yeah, there were potential tour,
I never got back
programs,
to
and then the Coventry Library, I don't know if they're doing a centennial.
I
And
think they
it's
did
in-
have a series, but it was only for the summer. I can send you what they have so far, but they didn't have anything for like September, October.
Yeah, there was some we were talking about with the Historical Society. And Kane Park, is the city gonna do anything around that?
We hope so, I'm not sure yet.
Okay. And we're not doing every inactive program, right?
I think that's Eric, he's really into
I know, okay, we can organize it.
We can do wear the costume,
Maybe Abraham, like,
as long as it has a hat.
Oh, and Josie she was really
into it too, yeah, all right, well, I want to
Or
go
she
to
is.
Okay, anything else on our agenda that we need to?
It's an easy to find around here. Road library is.
Sure.
You're just looking for the book.
conservation activities and lectures, we just did that, development updates, so it looks like Tudor Taylor's moving along, which is nice.
Yeah.
Someone asked me the other day what the status is of the former synagogue, is it? What's it now?
Next to Tudor Taylor.
I don't know who owns
I'm
it.
not sure.
There's a
Deputy
development.
Henry was working on that too.
There was a big lawsuit, and, this man, who was a member there has been speaking at the last 2 city council meetings, and it just doesn't make any sense what he says at all.
If you go to the county records, it's owned by X, Y, Z or whatever.
Oh,
The
they have
state
it.
owned it, and then the county says somebody owns it, he says somebody else owns it, it's just a front for the city, and.
Oh, he's just ranting, but for the county
If you go
residents.
to the county records right now, it's the same people that own Tudor Taylor own that
Oh,
property.
well, that's good, okay, I knew that was part of their vision, but I didn't know what was happening, that's
Doesn't
great.
RDL own?
WXC.
Yeah, I always get it mixed up.
I was hoping they would have.
Whatever, some letter, some
The
person with
last few
letters.
letters, you know,
There's in there, I don't know, Wixie. Okay, that's good, any other development things we need to know about? Anything happening with severance? That is pending that we need to worry about with the.
We have not gotten any updates from council on what they'd like to do with what was brought forward. I don't know if we're starting from the beginning again or how that's going.
I'm gonna, reach out again to the school district about landmarking the stables.
Yes,
please. I had some informal conversations at the Heights 100, and there was a lot of, oh, I've heard they're in really rough shape. No, they're in actually excellent shape, they're in really good condition, and that was with a counseling person, so. It's great work. And so I will, maybe we do a tour or get, invite people to come and see it.
That'd be cool.
Would be great, for sure, I would like to landmark those. I would also
Yes.
like to landmark Milliken, but I don't know if that would, if there is any interest in that one, so.
The only other thing, it's not a landmark or anything, but Culver's is building
Oh, yes.
on the corner of Mayfield and Vandermar.
Right around the corner from
Where?
us.
Mayfield and Vandermar, where there was a theater there.
Really
Yeah,
nice
right.
mixed use.
It's very-
Yeah, it's over by
It's the big
Noble
triangle
and
there.
Mayfield.
It's a,
It's where the second Mayfield there used to be.
Yeah. The movie theater that got torn down because the guy didn't want to pay.
I thought.
When did that get decided?
A while ago.
Yeah, the last few months, they're coming to planning commission later this month.
That's good to know. My partner's gluten-free and that's like the only place you can get anything like a gluten-free bun
Children
anywhere.
are really excited.
Yeah.
It's not gonna-
Apparently it's
I don't
like
know
just
if
like
they
the
have it
original.
there. I was
gonna say, it's so good.
Since they tore the dairy down, I thought that they were going to build some big project there for that whole triangle. This is not going to take up much
Seems to be
space.
just more space for mulch is what's happening.
What's the cross street?
For Culver's.
Yeah, they made a big deal about
No,
it.
right.
Was that where the old
Entrance
video
is-
store was? Or that it was a theater, then it was like a blockbuster, yeah.
They are gonna have like a.
Liquor store at one point.
And it's near, it's Mayfield and Morrisville.
It's a grassy
It's
lot.
intersection, but it's to the west.
Used to be a supermarket.
Right now, it's just a big grass lot because there was a lovely mixed-use historic building that included a movie theater that was owned by an out-of-town person who decided they didn't want to pay for it anymore, so they just tore it down.
Then the car wash was going to go.
Well, it was gonna be
Big
a Circle
Waterway
K.
car wash was going to go there. That was a big meeting.
Number of
so-
terrible options, yeah. The liquor store.
Yeah,
Another one?
well, there was one in the old movie.
What's all over the place is the smoke stores.
It was there when I was in high
They call
school.
them head shops. They're all over the place.
All right, I think we're good. Research, not gonna look at them until I get through July 19th, and then I will look at what our current list and what exists, because I know we're at a point where we don't have any rewritten ones, so send me where we have few, not enough, maybe. I know I made a list last time.
And I can send around the spreadsheet again.
And
All
the
the
link to
updated,
the Dropbox, so that you can, if it's one that you said you would do, you can go in and look and see what's there.
I know, right, there aren't any.
Yeah. Well, I know we have the Collier's house.
Well, I rewrote that.
Right. And that one's
Two
right there.
others.
Yeah, I think I have the same goal. So, all right. Any other business, anything? All right.
Got the email from you this is great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So should I be, is it okay I send this to him?
I'm
And
looking
should,
who's
like,
the
what's the process?
Arts Houston, like
Yeah.
Huston.
So the process would be, you can do something informally to
Yeah,
him,
just-
but then I would like that info too, because then
You have it, you're
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll send a
you.
formal letter
Oh,
from
okay.
him that just talks about
All right.
what it means to be a landmark and all that, but here.
Okay.
And it's on the OHI as well.
But it's helpful to have the additional.
Yeah.
So yes, you can reach out to him, but then I will formally also reach out to him. Okay, anything else?
Okay.
All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for staying.